Jackson Systems is your controls expert in the HVAC industry. With our top-notch technical support and customer service, we make life easier for you, the HVAC contractor. We offer free trainings on any products sold here at Jackson Systems, along with our filter fetch program, free thermostat imprinting, home and business automation with connected sensors, cameras, and even smart stats from Nest, Ecobee, Honeywell, White Rogers, Google, and more. Visit us at jacksonsystems.com to see the products that continue to win industry acclaim among contractors worldwide. Jackson Systems, controls done right.
You're listening to the HVAC After Dark podcast, a proud member of No One's Kiss Ass Network. Welcome back to the HVAC After Dark podcast. Guys, I got a good show for you today. I'm talking to a longtime friend of mine and a longtime subscriber of my YouTube channel and many other people's YouTube channel. His name is Gil Cavey. You know, we had a great talk. I think you guys are really going to enjoy this podcast. It's just two HVAC technicians shooting the shit about HVAC. We talked business, we talked equipment brands, and we talked a little bit of inverter talk. It was a great conversation. You know, sometimes when you're talking to somebody on these things, some of the guys run out of things to talk about and, you know, there's nothing else to say. That was not the case with Gil. I mean, we never ran out of things to talk about. It was a great time. So we're going to get into the interview with him here in just a minute. But before we do, we'll talk a little bit about what's been going on here. And at the home front, me and the wife are now all just about settled into the new crib. I have a much nicer space to podcast in than my closet that I had at the previous place. But so I'm very happy about that. And, you know, we're just about settled in. We still got a few more things to get from the other place. But other than that, it's going well. You know, we are still renting because, you know, we're not rich like some people think we are. But, you know, and what's really nice is that the landlord that we're renting from is a good friend of my father's. And, and we live up the road from my father now, so we're closer to him because, you know, he's all the family that I have left. And we're also right up the road from Candace's mother. They all live out here in the country in the same area. So it's great. You know, we're all close together to where we can, you know, everybody can visit and stuff like that. And that's what it's all about. It's all about family. So, what I really like about this place is I have a shop over here. I mean, I guess I can't really call it a shop. It's more like a shed. It's like a 12 by 24 or 12 by 20 shed, but it's perfect. You know, it's got enough room for me to keep, you know, my tools and stuff in that I need. So it's really great. It's foam insulated, so I do have the option to air conditioning it with a window unit or a mini split. You know, I'd have to ask him if I could do a mini split. I asked him about the window unit, and he said that'd be fine. But anyway, so, yeah, we're going to get into this interview here with Gil here in just a minute. You know, I'm still working on I haven't decided how I'm going to give away the Sporlan Pro R tool yet. I'm trying to think of a way outside of Facebook to do it. Facebook is really the only way that I'm been able to think of doing it, but a lot of people, believe it or not, don't have a Facebook. So I'm going to try to figure out a way to do it through my YouTube channel. And once I figure that out, I will let you guys know. I'll just upload a very short podcast giving you guys the details on how to enter to win the Sporlan Pro R tool. As far as HVAC work, still pretty busy here. You know, we're in the middle of September. Today's my birthday, actually. But it's still pretty damn busy. I got to swap out a condenser in the morning, and I have another job out for bid right now that I'm pretty confident that I'm going to get. So, and we're still running service calls. It's still holding at about 90 degrees here. The mid 80s, anywhere from 85 to 90. So it's still warm here. Usually stays like that through October. November to start cooling off just a little bit, but not a whole lot. So I posted in the HVAC After Dark Facebook group that next week's episode, I wanted it to be about combustion analysis, because I've had a couple combustion analyzers, and a lot of guys wanted to know about the Bacharach combustion analyzer. I had one for a very short period of time. So, and I can tell you that I really enjoyed it. It was perfect for what I needed, but I wish I would have never sold it. The Testo 320 was overkill for me because I have very little gas here, and I just did not use it to its full potential. The Bacharach was great. I am in the process of getting someone from Bacharach to come on the podcast and speak about these products, the H10, the combustion analyzers, and that way you guys can get more information. But what I do want to do is I posted in a group of if anybody would like to join me next week that is really good with combustion analysis that can tell us what the readings, really mean, because I'm no expert on it, and really go into good detail of how to understand a combustion analysis when you perform one on a furnace. Well, I did find one guy that was really good at it, but he's not willing to come on the podcast. Now, I got to get with Nicholas Rowan, because he was supposed to come on the podcast before all the changes were made with, y'all know what I'm talking about. And so that kind of got pushed away. But I think Nicholas Rowan does a lot of combustion analysis and knows quite a bit about it. So I'm going to be in touch with him. Maybe he'll come on the show next week, and he can all teach us a little bit about combustion analysis, because I know very little about it. I had 2 combustion analyzers, and I sold both of them because they never got used. They stayed on the truck because of the very little gas that we have here. I should have kept the Bacharach. The Bacharach was priced great. I opted to sell it to purchase the Testo 320, which I did not need, like I said, because of the very little amount of gas that I see here. No oil here, no oil burners. So I got rid of it too. If I ever do get another combustion analyzer, which I need to, it'll definitely be a Bacharach. So with that being said, we're going to get somebody on here next week, hopefully. Hopefully Nicholas Rowan knows a lot about combustion analysis. I believe he does. I do know he wants to come on the show. So hopefully he can teach us a little bit about combustion analysis on next week's show. All right, guys. Well, with that being said, I really think that's all I got for you here in the opening. Enjoy the interview with Gil. Not really an interview. It's actually just enjoy the conversation that myself and Gil had. It was great. We talked business, brands, inverters, and a bunch of other stuff. So I think you guys are really, really going to enjoy it. All right, guys, here's Gil Cavey. All right, guys, I'm talking with Gil Cavey. Gil is he's a follower of mine on YouTube. He's followed a lot of us on YouTube for many years, and he's been a great subscriber, and he's become a great friend lately with the transaction here, with the different podcasts and stuff. But we're just going to talk with Gil. Gil's a good technician, and me and Gil have a lot in common. And so I figured I'd bring him in, and we're just going to kind of shoot the breeze and just talk a little basic HVAC. So, Gil, how you doing?
I'm good, buddy. How you doing, John?
Oh, I'm good, man. Thanks for taking the time to join me.
Oh, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's no problem. So I talked to you the other day, and you couldn't do this because you were at the Ravens game. So did the Ravens win?
Yeah, the Ravens won. That's about all I knew. I had a little – I'm not much of a drinker, but I had a few too many alcoholic beverages. But it was a good time. I have season tickets to the Ravens games that were passed down by my dad. And it's a good time when me and my brother go.
Fantastic. That's awesome. Everybody knows I'm a huge Saints fan, even though it's going to be a long year for us this year. But but I wish I had season tickets. Yeah, and see, that's one of the things we have in common is that you recently lost your father, and I recently lost my mother. Because I remember when you lost your father, I told you if you ever need anything to holler at me because, I understand what it feels like to lose a parent.
Yeah, it's hard, man. That's definitely one thing that you'll never understand until you go through it. I mean, even when you know it's coming, it's rough, And I'm kind of like you, where my father taught me this trade. I mean, I started doing this trade when I was, 11, 12 years old, going out with my dad, and when he passed away, it was kind of rough. I mean, you go and do this job every day, and it's kind of hard not to think about the man who taught you. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I still have my father, but I did lose a mother. And you're right. You'll never understand what the true pain it is to lose a parent until it happens to you. My mother, of course, she's not the one that taught me the trade. And I can only imagine, because, one day I'm going to have to face that where I lose my father, the man that taught me all this. But I can imagine that, that makes it that much worse. But I was very close to my mother. I'm the baby of the family. I have 2 older sisters than me. So I was a mama's boy. My mama took care of me. So that was pretty tough.
Oh yeah, I can know. I mean, I'm the baby too. I'm the youngest of 5, and I'm a mama's boy too. But I was always the closest one with my dad. My dad did 3 tours in Vietnam, so that Agent Orange stuff came back to bite him. And my dad was a pretty big man, and after that, it was just. It was just all she wrote. I mean, you know how it is when you're little, when you look at your dad, he's the biggest, strongest man in the world. You know what I mean? Nobody's stronger than your dad. And watch them go through something like that is rough. But it is what it is. But it's definitely a hard thing.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so you were telling me earlier you don't own your own company, but you're like the operations manager for one?
Yeah. So I work it's a smaller company. We've got maybe between install guys and service, maybe like 6 trucks on the road. A year and a half ago, I went out on my own. I teamed up with 2 guys that I grew up with that own their own plumbing company. They were like, hey, man, why don't you, we'll start an HVAC side. You team up with us and, that's all yours. I'm like, all right, cool. Well, it was a bad business decision. It ended up not being very well. So I ended up going back to my previous company. So to some of the guys out there, not to deter you from starting your own business, but you normally don't hear about the ones that go awry. So just know that it's not easy. It's not an easy thing to do. And, I'd like to do it again, but it's hard.
It is definitely not, and that's great. That's what my podcast is all about, is talking about the real stuff. So, if you want to elaborate or continue to explain, man, please do. The floor is yours. That's what this is all about.
Yeah, of course, man. Well, see, first of all, when you're going to do something like that and you're going to go into business with somebody else, you better damn sure know that relationship is rock solid, and you're going to be okay because, like I said, I did it with 2 brothers. So you got to think, I'm always going to be the odd man out. The 2 brothers aren't going to go against each other. Me and one of the brothers, he's an awesome guy. He's the coolest guy you'll ever meet. Still a friend now. Brother, not so much. And it just got to be a hard situation to deal with. And, plumbing and HVAC's different. As much as, the trades are similar in ways, they're not. The companies are run different ways. We do different things. And they just kept trying to compare it to plumbing. And, as far as pricing, when they were hiring people, HVAC guys make more than plumbers do. I mean, it's just, at least around here. And it just got to a point where it started off with a bunch of speed bumps, and it seemed like, the roller coaster just fell off the track and it started going down, down, down. And it got to the point where it was better off to just shake hands and be like, hey, man, I'm going to go this way, you go that way. Because, wasn't able to get enough business to stay. And they were doing, obviously living in Maryland outside of Baltimore, people know Baltimore is kind of a rough town. But there's the housing market in Baltimore is people are flipping houses like crazy, which it's not a bad market to get into. there's just so many shady contractors out there that they were involved in. You know, when you're doing these $40,000-$50,000 jobs, you know, 90-day net, and come 90 days, you're not paid. You know, so it got rough, and like I said, I lost a buttload of money, but it kind of is what it is. I'm not going to sit here and whine over it. I just gotta learn from it and move on.
Yeah. No, I don't think you're whining at all. I think that this will be a great podcast for somebody to listen to for what you went through. But, you know, I want to touch on that myself because my father was a 50-50 owner of a plumbing, heating, and air company with his ex-best friend. You brought up friendships, and that's what I want to get to. You know, it makes me laugh because we'll get into that. But
I have no idea what you're talking about.
You will here in a minute. But, you know, I don't think going into business with a friend is a good idea. And to me, that'll fuck up a friendship. You take, for example, me and you know who, you know, what just happened with the podcast. You know, we were good friends, and we were in I don't guess you could say a business, but in a business type relationship together, and it didn't work out. And guess what? We're not friends anymore. My father was a 50-50 co-owner of a plumbing, heating, and air company that him and his ex-best friend started together. These two guys met at a company that they worked for. They worked at a plumbing, heating, and air company together. That's how they met. They became best friends. Well, they decided they wanted to go in business for themselves. Now, my dad is a plumber. His ex-best friend is a plumber, and my dad's also an HVAC technician. His ex-best friend is not. His ex-best friend knows not jack shit about HVAC. But when they went into the business together, they decided, you know, that even though Dad was a plumber, Daddy wasn't going to mess with the plumbing. He was going to take care of the HVAC, and his partner was going to take care of the plumbing. After a 20-year business partnership, we left there 7 years ago this month because we found out that his partner was stealing from him. He was embezzling money and all kind of shit. So they're not friends anymore. So I think it's bad business to go in business with a friend.
Yeah, you're friends or family. I mean, you really are. Me, if I do it again, I'm going to do it by myself. But I'm lucky enough that the company I went back to, the owner is an awesome guy. I mean, he's taught me so much in my career, not even just technical stuff, but just about business. That, you know, I'm fortunate that he has two daughters that want nothing to do with the company. So I could have an opportunity to take his company over. I mean, and this guy's been in business for, 30 years. And that's what some of these guys got to realize when you're working for these small companies and you're like, oh, my boss is an asshole. And man, why does he do this? Why does he do that? You might not understand the reasons, but if that man's been in business for a long period of time, he knows what he's doing because it's hard to run a business. And if his doors are still open, he's doing something right.
I couldn't agree with you more. You know, over here, there's a lot of guys that they know very little about heating and air. I mean, don't get me wrong, they know about heating and air, but they don't keep up with it anymore. You take, for example, the biggest heating and air company here, they've always been a HVAC and electrical company. They recently, about 2 years ago, got into the plumbing business. They bought out a plumbing company here in town, and they bought him out, and they work under his license. That's the only thing that to me would be a little iffy is that if you piss that guy off and he decides to leave, he takes that license with him. But, you know, I'm sure they got him under contract and all that. But anyway, the guy that started that company, and like I said, it used to be strictly heating and air and electrical. He doesn't really, I'm not going to say he doesn't know HVAC, but he hasn't done it in years. He has not kept up with none of the technology. And if you were to put him on a service truck today, he probably wouldn't do very well, but he knows how to run a business. He's very, very smart in the business aspect of it. When he started this company, he started it out with one truck. He has grown that, and that was in 1993, I think. He started out with one truck. He has grown that business to 5 locations throughout the state of Louisiana and 1 in Mississippi. And it's not because he's a great tech. It's because he knows how to run a business.
Well, I mean, exactly. I mean, in that situation, he doesn't have to be a great tech. He can find great techs who can do the work. He can just put them into position to be successful.
Right, because they are the biggest company here. They have just the location here. I'm talking about, again, they have 6 total locations, 5 in Louisiana, 1 in Mississippi. I'm talking about just the location here where I live. They have 6 of those furniture truck, U-Haul style trucks. Those are their installation trucks.
Holy moly.
They have 6 of them here. All 6 of them do a change out every day.
Man,
they're doing 6 change outs a day here. And they are the most expensive in town. They're charging the premium price. To give you an example, they're probably doing a 4-ton heat pump for 12 to 13 grand.
Yeah, we got some of them big ones around here, but that right there just shows you. I mean, I was always taught that you don't ever want to be the most expensive guy, but you don't want to be the cheapest guy. You want to be kind of right in the middle, and you're not supposed to win every bid. If you do, you're too cheap.
You know, man, you couldn't have said it any better. I've taken some business classes, and I went to this one guy. I wish I could remember his name. I think my oldest sister knows who he knows his name because she's the one that turned me on to him. He was a very, very smart business guy. I took his class in Houston, Texas, and he said those exact words. He said, if you're getting every job you bid, he was talking about change outs, he said, then you're too cheap. He said,
I think I went to the same guy. Sorry to interrupt you, bud, but I went to a class in Dallas, Texas, and I swear I can't think of his name either, but I think it's the same guy.
It could be. It could be because I had some questions and stuff, and when he said that, he looked right at me. He kind of singled me out, and this was years ago. And he said, if you're getting every job, every change out that you bid, then you're too cheap. He said, you don't want to get them all. So I'm definitely not as expensive as the company I was talking about previously, but I'm not as cheap as Chuck in the truck either. And we have a lot of Chucks in the trucks here. I don't know about up there where you're at.
We have some. I know one of the other podcasts you were talking about licensing and stuff like that. And that's one thing good about Maryland is we do have a pretty, I wouldn't say strict, but we do have to have licensing, when you got to be ours, you got to hold an apprenticeship for 4 years. Then you get a journeyman's. You got to hold your journeyman's for, I think it's 4 or so years. Then you can get a master's license. See, I was lucky that I was pretty young. I mean, I think I was 20. I don't know. I'm 34 now. I think I was 26 when I got my master's license.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
The licensing here is horrible. We don't really have any regulations stopping Chuck in the truck. All he's got to have is an EPA card, and he can do whatever he wants. We have no journeyman HVAC here. We have no master HVAC here. The only thing we have here is a mechanical contractor's license, which I do have, but it only comes into play over 5 tons or if the job goes over a certain dollar amount, which I'm not sure what that dollar amount is. I think somebody left a comment on my last one when I talked about that. I don't remember what the dollar amount is, but our licensing, we have nothing that stops Chuck in the truck from doing his job. And that's unfortunate here. But, I guess it is what it is. So there's really not much I can do about it.
Yeah, no, and you can't. And to be honest, our licensing thing here, I mean, the tests, I mean, I'm not a good test taker. I'm more hands-on. I mean, the master's test, it took me like 3 times to pass it. But it doesn't make you a better tech. There's not really any technical questions on there per se. A lot of them are like codes, if you're on a roof, how many feet do you have to be before you need a railing and like, dumb shit like that.
That's pretty much, yeah, that's pretty much what the mechanical license was here. It really wasn't very much HVAC related at all.
Yeah, I saw a guy the other day in a supply house, and he's all bragging about his master's license, and he's the asshole when it's 95 degrees outside. He's wearing long sleeve with all his NATE certifications, and if anybody that knows me knows that I'm a kind of guy that I speak the truth. I'm an asshole. If you either like me or you don't, but I couldn't help but say something to him. I'm like, it's 100 degrees outside and you're wearing long sleeve shirts. You just want to show off your NATE certifications. And you know what I mean? Like, your master's license really doesn't. I know a lot of guys with master's license that might as well shove that wrench up their ass because they don't know what they're doing.
Absolutely. That's why I like you, Gil, because you're like me. I am proud to say that I am not NATE certified, and I will never be NATE certified. But I do know the guy you're talking about. We have them here, and a lot of them work for that company because that is one of the requirements of working there. They'll hire you on if you're not NATE certified, but you do eventually have to get your NATE certification to work for them.
Yeah, I am NATE certified, but I only did it because at the company I work for now, we're carrier dealers, and the carrier around here wanted somebody in the company to be NATE. They want all of our techs to be NATE certified. So I went and did it initially, just so we have that, and we weren't going to lose that business through them.
Right. That's very true, because when I was a carrier dealer, they wanted me to pay for a dealership because they have different levels. Now, they do have a free dealership, but in order to be on the paid or to be on the factory, a carrier factory authorized, to be a carrier factory authorized dealer, one of the requirements is, I think, one or more of your technicians must be NATE certified.
Yeah, that's what we are. Like I said, I don't ever knock equipment. I agree that they're all it's all about how it's installed. But my owner's been carrier through and through forever. And I like it. I like hell. When I redid my house, I put 2 of the 25 VNA inverter heat pumps in my house, and
fantastic.
Dude, these things are badass. I told my wife I was going to leave her for one. She's going to walk outside and see me humping the outdoor unit or something, because these things are awesome.
Fantastic. I love it. Fantastic. Yeah, man, I love carrier products. The only reason that I don't sell the actual carrier name, well, there's 2 reasons. I sell ICP. I sell Comfort Maker, which is the same damn thing,
It is the same.
But I don't sell the actual carrier name for 2 reasons. One, I love my supply house that I deal with where I get my ICP. Those guys go out of their way from me, so I don't think I could ever leave them. 2, we don't have a carrier store here. That's why when I sold carrier, I sold it for a very short time and went right back to ICP, because it wasn't worth it, because it was out of town. I had to get my stuff shipped in. Sometimes, and not all the time. Now, I'm not knocking the carrier store down in Lafayette, Louisiana. They're great people. But, sometimes mix-ups happen. Sometimes I accidentally send you the wrong tonnage of equipment. Well, guess what? If my supply house here in town delivers me the wrong piece of equipment to a job site, guess what? It's right here. They can go right back and get it. But when that happens, when you're dealing with somebody from an hour and a half away, it's not so easy just to spin them around and say, hey, that's the wrong equipment.
Yeah, no, and I agree. And that's a lot of these guys get on here and talk about different manufacturers, but that's the way it needs to be. Loyalty to a supply house and who takes care of you. You know what I mean? Like, carriers is good to us. It works out that my boss has been there forever, and the guy who runs the supply house part of it, I grew up with the guy. I've known him since we were like 3 years old. So, we have a couple connections where it's easy for us to be able to get stuff. So it definitely works out that way.
That's the way I look at it, man. You got to deal with who takes care of you. Brand matters.
Well, to me,
to a certain extent,
warranty matters more than the brand.
Right. That's very true. Now, with that being said, Goodman and Amana do have the best warranty in the industry, but would I sell their product again?
Yeah, when I went on that little spurt on my own, there's a good friend of mine who is a salesman for Johnstone. Awesome guy. And he came over and was like, man, what do I got to do to get you to be an exclusive Amana dealer? I said, unless you grow a pair of tits and you pull $1 million out of your ass, it ain't never going to happen, buddy. Sorry. And he was and he was a good guy. I bought a lot of truck stock and stuff from him, but I just couldn't do it. But I always tell people to prove that it's more about the installation. I mean, if you look at what's his name, Juan or Manny, the air conditioning guy. Yeah, I mean,
Juan.
Dude, his installations look
guy.
Flawless. You know what I mean? I bet you his systems have no problems. You know what I mean? Well, I'm not going to say no problems, but you know what I mean, because he installs them right.
That dude is a fucking artist. I mean, he does some beautiful work. And no, I spoke to him on the podcast one episode, and we talked before the podcast like me and you did. And that was one of the things we talked about before we hit the record button. And he told me he doesn't have any issues with his Goodman equipment. And I think he said it in the podcast too. Now, one thing he did mention is it could be the harsh climate down here in the South is of why we have so much trouble with it, because I'm not the only one that says that I've had trouble with it, No,
you're not. I mean, I have too. I mean, but granted, no, I have had trouble. I'll take that back.
But I don't know, man. I deal with Ari Michael because I don't buy equipment with Ari Michael because I don't like Nordyne. Now, I've bought a couple pieces. I've bought 2 systems, 2 complete systems, and I did 2 condenser only swap outs on mobile homes, and I bought 2 condensing units from them because the coils were made for 410A. Knock on wood, so far I haven't had any issues. Now, of course, they're all under 6 months old. But my ICP store, which is also a Rheem store, has the Weather King line again. Rheem has brought back the Weather King line.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I buy and because Air Temp was my go-to for budget jobs, because I do work for a couple guys that have rental property. I do work for a couple guys that flip houses, and they don't give a shit what the badge says. They want the cheapest damn thing that you can put in on those houses. So Air Temp was my go-to. Well, Weather King, they brought that in, and it's even cheaper than Air Temp. And Air Temp was cheaper than Goodman, and Weather King is cheaper than Air Temp. Yeah. So I'm getting a Rheem product with a copper tube aluminum fin coil versus a Nordyne with a micro channel. But to get to the point, I still deal with Ari Michael because they're good to me. So I buy all my truck stock with them.
Yeah, that's where we have one so close to our shop that they'll make deliveries to us like the same day. Yeah, when I saw your video on the Air Temp, I wanted to call you and be like, John, stay away from it, buddy. We have a big account around here. It's a big like nursing development. This is where senators and people, it's an armed facility. It's like 3 tiers that we do work in. Well, they buy the equipment and we put it in. We had so many issues with the Air Temp, and I know that my guys are putting them in correctly, so it's not an installation, but we have had so many issues with, the coils leaking, I mean, it's been a nightmare. Thank God that they went away from it. I think now they're putting in Goodman. Yeah, we had a lot of trouble with them.
That's a bummer to hear that, but luckily, I've only got a handful of them out there, 2 completes, and the rest of them are condensers only. So have y'all had trouble with the outdoor microchannels or the indoors?
It's been mostly the indoors, and we had one that was a gas furnace. This thing was 2.5 years old and had a crack. Well, I would say probably a 6-inch crack on the heat exchanger.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was pretty rough. Before I forget, though, the Weather King, Rheem, I love the new Rheems. I really think that they knocked it out of the park when they did their new design. I do miss the old box styles. I kind of like working on them, but I do like Rheem's new stuff. I really do like that.
I do too, and I'm also a Rheem dealer. I have access to the equipment. I'm a Rheem dealer, and I'm also an ICP dealer. I couldn't agree with you more. I think they knocked it out the park. I really do enjoy their new equipment. I do agree with you though that the box unit with what I call the big back door on the back will be missed.
I mean, how many times do you see those things?
Fucking
and they're from the 80s. They're all rusted up. I mean, yeah, they're probably 8-seer, but they're still kicking. I mean, let's be honest, dude. Like, you're not going to see 30 years anymore.
No, and I'm telling you, you couldn't have said it any better. I have been on so many of those square units, rectangle, whatever the hell they are, with the big back door on them, where the compressor's right there in your face. It's got the little box for the capacitor and the contactor and a defrost board and all that. These things are from the early 90s, late 80s, and they're still chugging along. They just need a little cleaning, maybe a new capacitor, but they're still working. Those things they're fantastic. They're tanks. They just don't die. I mean, they don't die.
Yeah, no, they're good. I mean, one thing, when I was on my own for a little bit, that was my bread and butter. That's what I was selling, the Rheems. I sold probably like 15 of their 20-seer inverter systems, and I do give it to them. I don't think that their inverter is nice. I don't think that it can compare with like the Carrier and Train inverter. And I might be putting my foot in my mouth, but it's got a good price point though. A customer can get that kind of technology, and they don't got to spend their kids' college tuition to get it.
Well, man, you're not putting your foot in your mouth. That is one thing Rheem and Rue do have to improve on. Their inverter is not very good. They're using a Copeland scroll compressor. Carrier and ICP and Train, they're all using rotary compressors, rotary style compressors, which is what you're supposed to use in an inverter. I have not heard anything good or anything positive from anybody about Rheem and Rude's inverters. So I do think they need to step their game up on that. I've only done one inverter in my career as far as forced air, not talking mini split here. It was an ICP. It was a fantastic unit. I've talked to the customer twice since I've put it in. He loves it. It's got a Toshiba rotary compressor in it. It's a great unit. I will never sell Rheem's inverter unless they make some major improvements.
Yeah, I mean, and like I said, I mean, and I agree. And the ones that I sold, granted, I'm not with that company, but, I've had the same cell phone number for 15 years, and the people are all still happy as long as they got to know that they're not, well, I guess the customer can't know, but you have to know you're not selling them, a Carrier inverter or a Train inverter. And the other thing that I don't like is their communicating thermostat just does not compete with, Carrier's Infinity Touch, that is a badass thermostat. I mean,
right.
The Train thermostat, those are slick thermostats. And that Eco is just, it's very bland and basic to be, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. I mean, you're right. I've never seen the Carrier one, because the ICP and the Carrier one are different, but the ICP one, to be honest with you, that's one thing I like to control, but to me, they ICP could step it up a little bit on their control. Now the Train and American Standard one, I have seen it because I seen it when I worked for that other company, and they're pretty fucking nice. The Train and American Standard ones.
Yeah, I mean, right now, like I said, I have 2 inverters. I can go on my thermostat and I can look at everything on that system. The static pressure, RPMs it's running. It gives me everything. Right. Like what position my EEV is in right now. It's just the thing is awesome. Like I have a thing in there where I put in, what I pay per kilowatt hour or something like that, and it tells me how much money I save. It's just. It's crazy.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. Hey guys, John Israel here from the HVAC After Dark podcast and Israel HVAC on YouTube. You know, I'm asked the question all the time, hey, John, what's the best refrigerant leak detector out there? Which one should I buy? I always give the same answer, the Bacharach H10. I myself have been using the H10G for the past 5 years and recently started using the H10 Pro from Bacharach. When it comes to refrigerant leak detectors, nothing beats the H10 from Bacharach. For more information, visit mybacharach.com. All right, man, I'm going to ask you one more question because you brought it up a second ago, and I know somebody in the comments is going to ask you or ask me to ask you. Okay, so you're no longer with the brothers from the plumbing company. You've got systems out there. Where do these people turn? Do they just call you on your cell phone or something if they need service now?
Yes, they do call me. To be honest, the brothers actually, when we parted, they tried to keep the HVAC and they hired some guy to do it for them. Obviously I took my license with me, so they bought a license from somewhere else. So I've actually talked to that guy, and he does all the repairs and stuff now. But the customers still call me, and apparently this guy is more of an old school. He's not very good with inverters, and he admits it. So if he has an issue, he calls me, and I'll still go out there, even through my company now, just to make sure the customer's taken care of. It's not really about money. If I have to diagnose it, and then the repairs and the money will go through the other company because, I'm going to make sure my customers are taken care of.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that at all. So the two brothers that you used to be partnered up with, so they are still in the HVAC business to this day?
Sadly, yes.
Okay. So, so they hired somebody to run the calls and stuff. Well, hey, at least you're doing the right thing. You're trying to help out. I know they may not be your customers anymore, but at one time they were. So, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. And those people bought it from me. You know what I mean? So I feel obligated. I can't just, oh, sorry, I don't work there anymore. Go screw yourself. I'm not that kind of guy. You know what I mean? It ain't about, even if I don't get paid to do that, because I know those guys ain't going to give me no money. Like, hey, Gil, thanks for helping us out. They're too much of dicks for that. But I mean,
right.
It's not about that though. I don't care.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's not about them. It's about the customer that bought that unit, and it's your name all over it. I totally understand where you're coming from, because when I went to work for that other company, they're the biggest Linux dealer in the state of Louisiana, used to be, but now they're pushing nothing but Amana. And I got to where I wouldn't sell people equipment anymore. I would just tell them, hey, look, you need new equipment. I'm going to get the salesman out here to go over options with you, because I knew what Amana was. I knew the trouble that I had with it, and I didn't want my name behind it. Even though I didn't own the company, I was just an employee. They still would have called back one day and said, hey, we've had nothing but trouble with this thing, and John told us when he sold it to us that this thing was a good piece of equipment and blah, 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 blah. I just didn't have the heart to do that to people knowing the truth. So I got to the point to where I tell the customer, look, I'm going to get the salesman over here, and he'll go over options with you. And that's pretty much what it was.
Yeah, well, I mean, and that's the truth. I mean, if you think about it, how many times do you go in to sell a system and people have a damn brochure out? I want this one. They're
right.
buying you. They're buying you as a person, you as an HVAC mechanic. I mean, I could go in there and sell them, Gil's AC, with my own sticker on there. They don't know. They know what you tell them, and they're buying what you tell them. So that's when honesty, integrity, stuff like that comes in. Most customers don't know brand names.
Absolutely. I mean, you said it perfect. They're depending on you. They're trusting you to sell them and install something in their house that's going to give them years of comfort with very little issues. You're exactly right. 9 out of 10 customers that I am pushing a sale to don't even ask me, hey, what brand are you putting in?
Most of them don't. I mean, you get them customers that, especially we're in the day and age of the internet, and some people do say, oh, well, what do you sell? And I've heard my neighbor has a train, or, you get them customers trying to keep up with the Joneses. I actually sold, it was a whole cul-de-sac. I sold one Carrier Infinity system to one neighbor. And just because they all wanted to be the same, it was a bunch of little old tic-tacky people trying to keep up. I ended up selling a system to 6 houses in that cul-de-sac because they all wanted to be the same.
Right. You know, I get that once in a blue moon, maybe once a year, twice a year. Hey, can you put me a train? I really would like to have a train. Now, with that being said, do I have access to train to do that? Yes, I do. Have I ever had to use my resources with train to use the equipment? A couple times, because I just could not talk them out of it. But most of the time I can talk them out of it. Not because I don't want them to buy a train. I mean, well, I guess I don't want them to buy a train because I got to get it from out of town. And that's not the brand that I push, you know. And I like to deal with my guys at the supply house where I get my ICP. I know the equipment. I like the equipment, so I like to continue to use it over and over.
I've actually had the same situation where, you know, I could sell train, but if I get into a bidding war with another company who sells train, obviously they're going to outbid me, you know. And I told a customer one time, and she said she wanted train, and I was honest with her. I said, ma'am, if you really, really want to train, I said, maybe we're not the company for you. You know, I said, I'm a carrier dealer. I said, I can quote you an equivalent system. I said, but if you want train, that's not my specialty. Maybe you should try, you know, an exclusive train dealer. I left her my quote. She got 3 train prices. She called me back, ended up buying the carrier. She said, because I appreciate your honesty and what you told me. She's like, and that's why I'm going with you. So that's just how I've been doing it.
Hey, you know what, man? There's actually nothing wrong with that. And to be honest with you, I think I may just start doing that myself because, I mean, I don't have to jump through hoops to get train equipment because I know a guy. He's not really supposed to sell it to me because I'm out of his territory, but he does it anyway. But it's a little bit of a hassle, and I don't get good pricing on it at all. And that's usually when people back off, you know, and that's what I try to tell them. I'll say, look, I'll quote you a train, but it's going to be real expensive. And usually when they see the train quote, they back off and go with the other brand because I do not get good pricing on train.
Well, I think all train pricing is bad. But yeah, you just tell them like what you just told me. Be like, man, if that's what you want, you know, maybe you should try one of these train dealers, you know, be like, I put in this product because they are good to me. I can get their parts readily available. The last thing I would want to do is sell you a train. God forbid something happens for warranty, and then it takes me forever to get you that part because I'm not a train dealer.
Absolutely.
You know,
absolutely.
I mean, you know, but it is what it is. I mean, Train's good stuff. I'm not going to sit here and knock it. I mean, Train has been one of the better names in air conditioning for a long time. They're good stuff. It's just you pay a lot for that name.
Yeah, I agree with you. You know, Train American Standard is good stuff. You know, there's a lot of guys can't take a joke, you know, but you've followed me over the years. You know, I've knocked Train. Man, I ain't got no problem with the equipment. Hell, the old units with the big top on them, the XL 1200s they had back in the day and the 1400s, man, those units were unstoppable. The reason I don't like Train is because of their company policies. It ain't got nothing to do with their unit. Because, I mean, even their new equipment today, it's good stuff. I mean, it is. Now, I don't think it's anything special, but it's good stuff.
Yeah, well, what gets me is, you know, when they were bought by Ingersoll Rand, did you know Train was bought by Ingersoll Rand?
I did.
Yeah, you know, and when that happened, Ingersoll Rand only wanted their commercial division. But, you know, they're like, hey, it's an all or nothing kind of deal. And I felt like after that, like Train's commercial stuff is the shit. Train's commercial stuff is nice. And their residential is too, but I felt like it took a little hit when that first happened. They've caught up now, but I felt like, you know, a couple of new lines that came out after that was the same technology in a new package.
Yeah. I couldn't agree anymore. And I'm glad you verified that because when Train got bought by Ingersoll Rand, that was one of the rumors that I heard that Ingersoll Rand said, look, we don't want to have nothing to do with residential. All we want to do is commercial and industrial. And I think Train pitched a hissy fit over it. And maybe you can clear this up, but I also heard that Ingersoll Rand wanted to drop the American Standard name.
They did. Actually, a good friend of mine, his dad works for Baltimore Train here, which is it's a real big dealership they have here. And so I get a lot of my stuff from him. But that is true. They did want to do that. They decided to go against it. I was trying to think the other thing that they I forgot where I was going with that. There was something else that I was trying to think about that they were that was going to happen that didn't happen. But yeah, it was a lot of stuff that went down because they really only wanted, Ingersoll Rand was only going to take the commercial division, and they were actually going to have a deal to sell the residential division to somebody else. But think about it. How the hell is that going to work?
Yeah. That would have never worked, But I tell you what, and I can see where Ingersoll Rand was coming from, because Ingersoll Rand is a commercial and industrial company. I mean, you look at these air compressors that they make and all this other stuff. Now, I am glad to see that they did decide to keep the equipment around. Now, I will say this. I do applaud Ingersoll Rand on one thing. They bought the company, but at least they didn't change the equipment like Johnson Controls did to York. Ingersoll Rand bought the company, but they didn't say, okay, look, we're going to just fucking redesign the whole equipment line. And, we're going to switch from copper tube aluminum fin or spine fin to microchannel. And, we're going to completely redesign the equipment, even though y'all have had technology that's worked throughout the years. And I'm talking about York and Johnson Controls here, because that's basically what Johnson Controls did to York. They took York, which used to be a hell of a piece of equipment. My father sold it for over 20 years with very little issues, and they fucked it all up. They redesigned it and made it cheaper and put microchannel coils on it. Ingersoll Rand didn't do that with Trane. They just bought the company. That's it.
Yeah, as far as I know, nothing changed for the people that worked at Trane. It was still pretty much you were just getting your paycheck from somebody else, but day-to-day operations didn't change when it was bought. That's from what I heard, that they kept doing their things the same way they did it before. They were pretty much just getting their paychecks from somebody else.
Yeah, to my knowledge, that's all that happened. All I know is that Ingersoll Rand walked in and said, "Look, nobody's fired. We're not changing up the equipment or nothing. We just bought the company because we wanted the company." Johnson Controls, on the other hand, went in there and said, "Look, we bought the company. We own York now. Nobody's going to lose your job, but hey, we're going to retool the whole factory because we're redesigning the equipment. We're going to fuck it up. Yeah. We're going to put microchannel coils on it. We're going to make it leak, but you still got your job." So I applaud Ingersoll Rand for seeing an opportunity to buy a company and buying a company and not fucking it up and letting them continue to design the equipment the way it's been proven to work. Unlike, I have a lot of hostility towards Johnson Controls because of what they did to York, because of my love for the York brand, because that's the only brand I knew for a while when I got into this trade, because that's all my father sold. To see that brand get ruined like it did because of Johnson Controls, I have a lot of hostility towards Johnson Controls.
Well, plus it seems too, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I could be wrong in saying this. I guess it was a little different for Ingersoll Rand and Trane, because Ingersoll Rand wasn't really, an AC refrigeration kind of deal. Johnson Controls was kind of in the same kind of market. So maybe that's what made that situation different.
That's a good point. That's actually a really good point. I didn't even think about that, but you're exactly right. Johnson Controls, like you said, they're an HVAC company. Ingersoll Rand's not. So that probably did have a lot to do with it. Ingersoll Rand probably said, "Look, we ain't no fucking heating and air company. We just bought the damn company so we can make some money. Y'all just keep doing what y'all are doing." And then Johnson Controls probably said, "Well, we're HVAC and we have better ideas and blah, blah, blah." And that's probably why they redesigned the equipment. So that's a good point there, Gil. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, well, Ingersoll Rand, did it as a business decision. It was profitable. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's crazy.
Well, and you take Carrier, they got bought out by United Technologies. They haven't changed anything. Carrier's still being built. Hell, man, the damn air handler design's been the same for like 50 years.
Yeah, no, Carrier pretty much has been the same. And I'm not going to lie, I kind of wish Carrier would redesign their their air handler cabinet, just I guess once again, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I kind of wish they would update it a little bit, like speaking of Train, those, I guess it's the TAM 6, TAM 7, the plastic one.
The plastic air handler, I hate those things.
Yeah, me too. I mean, what I don't understand is they made the blower and the coil so accessible. You know what I mean? A couple of screws, it comes out, but you got to have goddamn go-go gadget arms to check the fucking heat strips. It's like, why do you got to put 15 wires, a breaker, some big metal piece, for me to stick my goddamn hand back there and get electrocuted?
Absolutely. Man, I'm so glad to hear somebody else bitch about those heat strips because I've been knocked a lot for it, but I've sold every brand under the sun. But man, that was one of the things about that damn air handler, them fucking heat strips. And then I always said you had to have a college degree to install them. You got these little wings you got to put on there, and then you got B cabinet or A cabinet, B cabinet, C cabinet. Then you got to put those on the little brackets, and then the little wings that go on the brackets. And man, it was just, and then, you got to pipe in your refrigerant lines with a long swoop so you can get the doors off and service the heat kit. I don't know, man. The only positive thing that I found about that air handler was the way that it breaks apart to get it into an attic.
Yeah, that is really cool about how that works.
Yeah. That's pretty much the only positive thing I can say about Trane's plastic air handler. But Carrier, they've been using that same air handler design and cabinet, for 20 something years, maybe more.
As long as I've been in the field, and like I said, I mean, I'm 34, been doing this since, granted, I wasn't always doing Carrier when I was that young, but that's the only one I've ever seen.
Yeah, I've been doing it for 15 years, and it's the only cabinet I've ever seen. I mean, because if I take out a Carrier air handler and go back with an ICP, everything fits like a glove.
Yeah, well, whatever you do, don't ever sell a Goodman air handler in an attic. It's like trying to put a fucking Titanic up there. Those things are boats.
No shit, man. It's like a damn refrigerator. Most of the tonnages that we do over here are 4 ton. 4 ton is our probably most common tonnage. That damn thing is 24 and a half inches wide, and it's like 63 or 62 inches tall or long. It's ridiculous. Carrier and ICP are, I think, and I could be wrong, but I think they're the only ones that make a 4 and 5 ton in a 21-inch wide cabinet.
I think I don't know. I think you might be right.
I don't know. I know Ream has one, but most of the stuff that I do here is heat pumps. And if you do a heat pump, you have to use the 24.5-inch wide air handler. And that thing is not small itself. But if you're doing a straight cool with electric heat, which I rarely do unless the customer just doesn't want a heat pump, then you can get a 21-inch air handler in a 4 or 5 ton. But other than that, I think Carrier and ICP is the only one that's got a matched up air handler that's 21 inches wide in a 4 and 5 ton cabinet. But yeah, those Goodman air handlers, dude, those things are huge. I'm surprised that Goodman is still using a piston.
Well, yeah, I know. I mean, and now, a couple that a site that I have that's all they want is Goodman. And every time that I ever get a coil from them, they're one of the only ones that it's always a piston. Like, you have to ask for a TXV. Well, at least where I am, I have to ask. And, and a lot of times I'm just getting I guess it's the same thing. It's the Aspen coils or whatever.
Yeah. Ever since they built that new plant, the new Daikin plant in Houston, Goodman has not had any cased coils available. So they've been selling their customers Aspen coils. I don't know if Goodman is going to continue just doing Aspen, or I don't know if it's because they're not tooled up for the case coils at the new factory. I don't know. if you're listening to this podcast right now and you're a Goodman guy, and you know the answer to that question, leave a comment. Now, you're going to have to go to my YouTube channel to leave a comment. If you're listening to this on one of your social media things on your phone or your tablet or whatever, you're going to have to go over to my YouTube channel to leave a comment. I'd love to know if Goodman is ever going to start making their own case coils again, or are they going to continue using Aspen? Because I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, every time that I've had like a Goodman coil leak or something and had to buy a replacement, I always got the Aspen coil. That's what they kept sending.
That's crazy, man. Because that was one of the things I liked about Goodman was their cased coils and their air handler replacement coils, because they were so cheap. You know, if you had a customer that didn't have a lot of money, had a refrigerant leak in the evaporator, you know, you could just do a slide out, slide in. Because, man, you could go buy a Goodman replacement coil for an air handler or a case for like $200-$300, you know, versus Carrier and Train and everybody else. York, they want like $1,000 for a 2-ton replacement coil.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. So, I don't know, man. Well, Gil, I think that's all I got, man. We've went so much longer than I expected, but I'm not complaining. I had a great time. I want to thank you for taking time out of your night to join me here.
Oh, dude, no problem, man. I appreciate being on here, man. I really appreciate you having me.
Hey, anytime. I'd love to have you again. It was a great time. I mean, we never ran out of things to talk about, and that's what I like. You know, some guys come on here, and I'm not upset, you know, and they run out of things to talk about. They'll just quit talking. Didn't have that problem with you at all. So thank you so much for taking time out of your night to join me.
No, you're welcome, buddy. I appreciate it. Anytime, man.
Sportland Smart Pro R service tools are specifically developed to meet the needs of refrigeration technicians. All the benefits of our original kit, plus the Smart Pro R tools allow temperature readings down to minus 40 degrees, fit any diameter pipe, allow multi-coil superheat readings, and 10 times the signal strength. Find out more at SportlandOnline.com.